Well, guys, I will definitely take the L in this one. I actually flew into the East Coast today. It's 11:19 when I'm recording this, so I'm exhausted, but still wanted to drop the video even though we lost. But of course, the Ravens did beat us in SoFi tonight. It was actually a lot lower scoring than I thought. We just weren't able to execute down when it mattered. Kicked a lot of field goals. Give credit to Cameron Dicker, knocked down all of his field goals tonight, but the offense didn't score touchdowns, and the Ravens, they scored touchdowns. That's all it came down to. I'm waiting for the score to finalize. Like, what's going on here? There we go. 30-23. That's not a low-scoring game, but I would have thought that the Chargers would have scored more points considering the Ravens came into this 32nd in terms of pass defense. They do stop the run, but I just did not think they'd be able to stop Herbert in this passing attack with McConkey, Johnson, who was absolutely terrible. His worst game of the season without question. This looked like the Quentin Johnson of last season, guys. He had a huge momentum-killing drop that he honestly could have ran for a touchdown, if not took it very close to it. And we all know that the Chargers ended up having to punt. And that was another thing as well, is there was a third down shot that they took. It should have been a PI. It wasn't, and they had to punt, and then the Chargers end up getting the ball back. They score. They had to kick an onside, though, because they were down 2 possessions. But, again, the Chargers did not lose this game because of the officials. I didn't think the officials were great in this one. But the bottom line is that, well, Herbert, he only threw for 218 yards, did not have a touchdown. Rushing-wise, 29 yards, which is great. But we needed that Herbert 350, 360 type of game tonight to be able to wheel this out because the defense just did not do enough. How about this? 37 for 212 rushing yards, 2 tutties on the ground. I mean, Justice Hill had a 51-yard touchdown run. Derrick Henry, 5.8 yards per carry. 24 of 140. Lamar had a rushing touchdown, but he actually didn't do much with his legs. Did have 2 touchdowns through the air. Only 177 yards. That's what it comes down to, is touchdowns. So Herbert throws for more yards, but he doesn't have a passing touchdown. They both have rushing touchdowns. And then in terms of the rushing, yeah, Gus Edwards has 9 for 11 for a touchdown. But, yeah, that's not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. This was a bad game by the Chargers. But you have to think of it this way. I don't think tonight we played even close to what I expected. It just was not a good game. And you lose to a good Ravens, a Super Bowl level contending team, by a score. But honestly, 7 points, it just does not feel like this game was that. I feel like the Ravens controlled this from the point on where they were actually inside of their own 20, and they went for it on, it was a 4th and 1, and they ran Mark Andrews on a QB sneak, I guess a tight end sneak to that point, and he picked it up. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say, honestly. Like I said, I've been traveling all day. It's not easy going from all the way out west to the East Coast, literally in Connecticut right now. I'm seeing family because that's where I'm from. But it's just one of those games where you kind of just want to get by it as quickly as possible and get on to the next one. Just not the Chargers I expected to come out, but I'm not really too worried. I'm not panicking. 7-4 is exactly where you want to be. You still have a chance to make the playoffs, obviously, because you still have, to this point, I believe we're going to go to the 6th seed, aren't we? Or am I could be wrong. Let's go look that up because the Ravens were the 6th seed, but they beat us now and have the tiebreaker. So I'm going to go look. I don't know if it's going to be updated, but pretty sure. Yeah, we're going to drop. We are, unfortunately. We're going to drop to the 6th seed. The playoffs don't start today. If they did start today, I'd actually be kind of happy. Going to Pittsburgh, that's a matchup that I love. Not that it's easy, but I would just love the Chargers out in that. But getting up to that 5th seed is certainly going to be huge because at that point you're looking at the Houston Texans, who would be a lot easier than the Steelers, at least in my opinion, because they're dealing with injuries and their defense is good, but the Steelers' defense is legit. We just saw what they did to the Ravens last week. Beat them. They've owned the Lamar Jackson since he's come in the league. But yeah, where you end up going in the playoffs is so big in the NFL because if you're the 7th seed, you're playing the Bills in Orchard Park. Good luck with that. If you're the 6th seed right now, you're taking on the Steelers. If you're the 5th seed, you're taking on the Texans, right? So it's not that bad, honestly. We know the Chargers ideally would love to get up to that number 1 seed, but now with 4 losses, it's looking like that's going to be nearly impossible to do. In terms of what's next, well, the Chargers, they actually are at Atlanta against the Falcons. Great opportunity to bounce back. The Falcons are coming off of a bye, which is something to note, so they're going to be well prepared and well rested. And then at Arrowhead the next week versus Tampa Bay, Denver, and then at New England, at Las Vegas the rest of the year. You got to beat the Falcons. It's not one of those games where you look at them and you say it's an easy opponent, because it's not. That the Falcons are fighting for their playoff lives, but you still have to win that game. You certainly got to beat the Patriots and the Raiders. You win those 3 games, 10 wins, you're basically guaranteed to make the playoffs. And then you've got Denver, Tampa Bay, Kansas City. You'd love to get 2 of those 3 games. Ideally speaking, you'd love to beat the Chiefs and beat the Broncos, obviously, and then like the Bucs game. But the Chargers are fine. I'm not looking at them any differently. It's not like, okay, well, they didn't play their best football. I was wrong about the Chargers. I did think they'd win this game. I felt very confident. I felt very confident against the Bengals, and look how that game was. And then this ended up just being a loss against Baltimore. The Chargers, they just have to realize that you can't commit penalties, because a lot of the reasons why touchdowns weren't scored tonight is because of third and long situations. Obviously, drops was another thing, not being able to run the ball. I will go back and rewatch the game. Whenever I make a video after specifically a loss, I'm just saying what's on my mind, thinking more emotionally rather than logically. Once I go back and look at the tape and things like that, and we'll be able to break it more down in depth. But you don't have to rewatch the game to know that the Chargers cannot run the ball. We talked about the Ravens being excellent running it. The Chargers just were flat out non-existent. 20 of 83, 4.2 yards per carry. You can win a lot of games doing that if you're Los Angeles because of Justin Herbert. But Herbert was not on today, and it wasn't because he was bad. It's because of drops, penalties, and pressure. I mean, how many times? Herbert was sacked 4 times. I was about to ask you guys, like we're live right now, but Herbert was sacked 4 times. He was under pressure a lot, and that's why he was not at his best. So I don't know what's going on with the offensive line. I know the Ravens got a good rush. They got Madubuike, Van Noy, Away, I believe is how you say it, right? Adafe Away. I don't know. I don't watch much Ravens games, but like they've got a good rush. But I think what it came down to was just getting beat up front, not wanting it. The Ravens, I mean, they don't lose very often after a loss of Lamar Jackson. They came ready to play. It seemed like early on the Chargers received the ball, they go down, they score a touchdown. I'm thinking, oh my God, the Chargers, they might run away with this game. I know it's early, but I just loved how everything felt. But momentum, maybe it doesn't exist. Because if momentum existed, the Chargers, like I said, they probably would have ran away with this game like I thought in the moment, but they didn't. And then all of a sudden, the Ravens just made play after play. The Ravens committed a lot of penalties. They were sloppy, but they figured out a way to win this game. And for the Bolts, that's just unfortunately what it came down to. That's the reality. But outside of that, not really much else to say. Shout out to Ladd McConkey. He puts together another great performance, 6 for 83. Will Disley has been a huge weapon the past month plus, 4 for 47. Palmer, 3 for 38. But that's the thing with these Chargers receivers is they didn't do enough. They did, because especially given the fact that Henry goes 24 for 140 on the ground, Justice Hill is a 51-yard touchdown. You need these Bolts receivers to make plays, to step up. You would have needed probably 120, 130 from McConkey, maybe 70 to 80 from Disley, Palmer 50, maybe 50, 55, and they just didn't get it. J.K. Dobbins, 3 for 19 as a receiver, as a runner, 6 for 40. Dobbins, I guess, had a pretty good game, but would have loved a couple of touchdowns from Dobbins, like, of course, we saw against the Bengals. But that's really all I got for you, man. If this video was trash, I apologize. I've been flying all day. I hate to make excuses, but I've been flying all day, like I said, going out from the west to the east coast. Pretty exhausted, but I still watched. I actually nearly fell asleep a couple times during this game. So, yeah, but peace, guys. Later.